The man operating the Dowding system is Keith Park.
Yeah. Dowding is the creator of the orchestra. Park is leading it.
Yeah. He's the genius conductor.
Yeah, the genius conductor, wielding his sword.
The man actually in the hot seat, basically the seat you are sitting in.
Yes. He likes the ladies, he likes a drink. He doesn't speak English.
They're not into using radio.
No, don't like that. If it doesn't cut away and break out of the fray in time, they're going to be stuck and falling into the channel. You know, we're talking about myths of the Battle of Britain. That is not a myth. That is absolutely factual. He was completely brilliant.
Welcome to Walking the Ground with me, Al Murray, and James Holland, and this is Film 7, Tactics in the Battle of Britain, isn't it, Jim?
Yeah, it is, absolutely. Yeah. And what a better place to start than from a crashed sculpture of a Stuka. Or a sculpture of a crashed Stuka,
yeah,
that's a better way of saying it.
Crashed the sculpture.
No, that's how it
came off the lorry.
You know,
and ended up like
get your grammar right, Jim.
Well, we want to talk about tactics in this episode, and of course, the Luftwaffe, they have a simple objective.
A simple remit.
You've got to destroy the RAF.
Yes, but how they do that is not straightforward at all.
But they have tactics. They have a way of doing things, and they're good at the thing they've been doing up to this point. In fact, they're really good at the thing they've been doing up to this point. Operating as a tactical air force, they're brilliant at it.
Yeah, they know how to bomb cities, small cities which are largely defenceless.
Yeah.
And their fighter planes know how to fly, what formation to use when they fly across the sky.
Yeah, which is, of course, the finger four.
Yes, the farm.
I mean, the British adopt it and call it the finger four, where basically that's your lead in a group
of four.
Group of four. That's your lead pilot.
Yep.
There's his wingman on his port side. Then there's the other pair on his starboard side, and this is the
grunt at the back.
Junior partner at the back. And you come, and the idea is everyone can see everything, and they can all follow one another.
Yeah. One of the myths of the Battle of Britain is, the Germans knew what they were about because they had the finger four, but the RAF was still sort of, stuck in the past with their kind of tight formations of Vics.
Yeah.
And they were terribly out of date, and they had their sort of attack formations, which are also out of date, all of which is true to a certain extent. I mean, the attack formations the RAF did have were not very good, but they quickly abandoned them. But actually, as Alan Wright, a pilot with 92 Squadron, pointed out to me, the Vic actually was quite useful when you're fighting a defensive battle because it's quite tight, and it means it's easier to manoeuvre.
Right. As a set.
As a set, to respond to a changing situation.
But the Luftwaffe it's quite interesting. There's sort of gaps in their technique because they're not into using radio.
No, don't like that.
And Adolf Galland in particular,
very dismissive,
but a fabled German fighter pilot.
Yeah.
Who has a stellar career as a fighter man in the war.
Yeah.
He doesn't believe in using the radio at all. He believes in leading from the front and hand signals.
Follow me, chaps.
Follow me, chaps, and that way sort of stuff.
Follow me, Herren.
Which is interesting because they've got the finger four right.
Yeah.
But they're not using radios, and that means later in the battle there are real issues with getting everyone together and coordinating their fleets of bombers and fighters.
And that's absolutely fine by the RAF, because the longer it takes to form up those formations for the Luftwaffe, the easier it is for those in the RDF stations to get a picture of what's going on.
A clearer picture as they form up. But
what we're going to do in this film is we're going to be looking at the tactics that the Germans have and how they adapt those tactics over the course of the battle, and indeed how the British adapt their tactics too, because it's not a straight line by any stretch of the imagination.
No, for either side.
No.
Yeah. I think what is really interesting though is always in the history of the Second World War, there's always this idea that the Germans are experienced, and so they bring experience to everything they're doing, but they're also set in their ways.
Yes.
Is the other thing.
Yes.
And you can be as experienced if you like, but if you're experienced in the wrong thing, it might not be that useful to you.
Yeah. So Al, we're back here at Chain Home in Dover. The skylarks are twittering. It's all very peaceful and everything, but the Luftwaffe's failure to even attempt to destroy this, apart from on one day, the 12th of August, the eve of Adlertag, Eagle Day, is really inept, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not good enough. If you think about it, how is Goering going to defeat what's in front of him?
Yeah.
He needs to knock out the early warning, which is the RDF.
Yeah.
So he needs to take out this entire chain, or at least punch a big enough hole that he can send everyone through.
Yeah.
Right? And he hasn't got the means to do that. He hasn't got enough planes, and also...
Well, not the accuracy. It's actually very hard to hit a lattice work pylon.
Yeah, and also it'll be repaired post haste because it's very, very important. And actually, while you're attacking it, they can see you coming. Right? So jamming it maybe is probably more effective. Spoofing it or something.
Yeah.
But it offers such a problem in itself, and he hasn't got the means to deal with that. Knocking out air bases, fighter stations, as we've seen, because they're generally grass strips, is very, very difficult. They don't really know which ones are which because they're very, very intelligence poor. Or if you're bombing the city, London, for political pressure, which is the reason to do it, really. I mean, they're bombing the docks, but really what you're doing is applying raw political pressure by bombing the capital city. They can't do that either. They haven't got the weight that, as we see later in the war, and without bringing in that too much hindsight, but we see later in the war, you can do 1,000 bomber raids on German cities and immolate them completely, and the government goes, well, we're digging in now.
Yeah.
So if those are the three things he needs to do to win the Battle of Britain, he can't do one of them with what he's got sufficiently.
Let alone three of them.
Let alone three of them, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because he's... Again, because they're Nazis, they've got this parallel command structure. So he's got General Martini, who is the head of Luftwaffe intelligence. Under him is Colonel Beppo Schmidt, Joseph Beppo Schmidt.
Yeah.
But Beppo Schmidt is also on his personal staff.
Right.
So Beppo Schmidt, although a colonel and not a general, is more important to Goering and higher up the food chain than the general.
Yeah.
And it is Beppo Schmidt who is he's a good Nazi. He was on the Beer Hall Putsch in 1923, the march in Munich where they tried to do a coup.
Yeah. So he's one of the old timers.
Yeah. He doesn't fly. He likes the ladies. He likes a drink. He doesn't speak English. He's got no qualifications for being an intelligence officer whatsoever, apart from Goering likes him and he's a good bloke, if you're Nazi.
Those are the qualifications.
Those are the qualifications. So he is put in charge of producing the intelligence briefing for the attack of the Eagles, Adler Angriff, which is going to be launched at some point fairly soon in July, from July onwards, maybe early August, and whenever they're ready. And Study Blue, which is what it's called, is just... It's nonsense. It is risible to read it today and realise how badly they've got it all wrong. They have no concept of the four commands within the RAF: training, coastal, bomber, and fighter. None at all.
They don't even know they exist.
Don't even know they exist. They think that the Hurricane is inferior to the Messerschmitt 110 as a fighter.
Yeah.
So in Study Blue, they don't pick up the early warning system. They say there is a suggestion that they've got some kind of DT defence.
Yeah.
And DT is a German term for radar, RDF. But they don't take it seriously. And the reason they don't take it seriously is because their Würzburg radars...
It doesn't look like theirs.
Doesn't look like theirs, and theirs are 360 degrees, and these are static, and they're only pointing one direction. So they think, well, how good can they be? We don't need to worry about that.
So what it leads to is Goering rationalising it, saying, well, the Spitfires will come up and we'll shoot them down. So what if they're being directed towards us? But what it actually means is Fighter Command aren't doing combat air patrols. They're not wasting time, fuel, their men's morale. They're not wearing themselves out taking a punt. Everyone is in the air for a reason, and everyone is being directed somewhere quite deliberately. Sometimes they don't find what they're looking for, but they're being directed quite deliberately, whereas the Germans are on a pure punt.
Yes.
They're flying on bearings, looking for targets that they don't really know about properly.
Yeah.
And it's Goering's complete failure to understand that the Dowding system and the way Fighter Command is operating is
a game changer.
Is a complete force multiplier, to use kind of your modern jargon, for what you can do with the fighter planes you've got. And it means that, well, the Hurricane is inferior to a 109, but not when it's plugged in.
110.
But not when it's plugged into this.
Yes.
And so you can set aside turning circles, and you can set aside those things, because if you're being directed, and it's a thing. After the battle, Churchill says something that completely sums that up. He says the Spitfire and the Hurricane are magnificent things in themselves, but they would have been nothing without the system that they're plugged into.
Yeah.
And
he's spot on.
And he's absolutely right, because after all, the French have got good fighter planes.
Yeah.
The Delusions and things, and they get trounced. And of course, you've seen how brave the Poles are and how intuitive they are, but they don't have an air defence system that they're part of.
Yeah, I mean, it is incredible, Goering's ineptitude. It really, really is. And, obviously that is a big part.
It's a lucky break.
It's a lucky break for the British, and it's one of the main reasons for the Luftwaffe's catastrophic defeat.
Yeah.
So one of the problems that the Germans have is that they're commanded by Hermann Goering.
Well, I mean, the thing is, we're about to get into his litany of failures here, but he's a clever man, Goering.
He's a very clever man.
He's a brilliant political operator.
Yep.
He's one of the.
He's a very effective businessman.
He's a brilliant businessman, you know, and he's grabbed the reins in Nazi Germany and made himself extremely rich and powerful.
Yes.
With his cunning and he's a fighter ace.
Yep.
So. But he can't figure this out. This is beyond him, isn't it? And also,
yes.
Dysfunction is a function of the Nazi state. So.
And he is particularly dysfunctional. One of the reasons he's particularly dysfunctional is because, you know, he is an opium addict.
Yeah.
And that leads you to highs and also to lows and extremes of character and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
One way of putting it. You know, so that's also coming into play. And you know, his expectations, because you know of what we've just been discussing about intelligence, you know, his intelligence is all wrong. So his start position on this is completely faulty. Goering assumes that it's going to take 3 days to destroy the RAF, but says, okay, well let's call it 4, just to give ourselves a little bit of wiggle room. And it hasn't happened.
But you can see why. France has tumbled miraculously before them. So they're high on their own supply. They're high on their own
and the army of the air has been destroyed. The French army of the air has been destroyed, which was, you know, has a sort of rough parity with the Luftwaffe in terms of, you know, operational aircraft. So yeah, you would have thought this should be an absolute shoo-in, and yet there's 2 things that they haven't factored in. First of all, the weather. So there aren't three clear days in the, you know, from the 13th of August there isn't. You know, it's patchy.
Yep.
So it's a bit dodgy on the 14th, then it's a bit clearer on the 15th, then it's dodgy again on the 16th and 17th, it's okay on the 18th, and then you have very intense fighting. But it's not continuous. No. You don't have these 3 days or even 4 days. Then from the 19th to the 23rd, it's very, very rainy, so it's hardly any flying at all. So it's very, very patchy. On the 19th of August, he orders all his senior commanders and some of his junior commanders as well to come to Karrenhall, which is his big pad to the northeast of Berlin. This is the point where he says, right, from now on, 3 fighter groups have to escort 1 bomber group. The big problem he's got way more bombers than he has fighters. Yeah. And what they're already discovering is that the Storers, which is his pet project, are being absolutely hammered, as are the Stukas. So that's a chunk of his fighter force which is kind of proving not to be quite as effective, anything like as effective as they'd hoped.
Well, because he's using them in the wrong role.
Yes, and secondly, that a big proportion of his bomber force is getting hammered as not as effective as everyone hoped. So that's 2 kind of big crosses. That means there's way more pressure on the people flying the Messerschmitt 109s, the single-engine fighter planes. And what that means is that they are having to fly much more than the bomber crews.
But then I suppose if you're thinking it's going to be a quick campaign, if you think we'll get this done in 3 to 5 days, that's okay.
7 sorties in 1 day is fine, but no, it isn't.
Yeah, well, no, it isn't if it's going to take weeks. And this is in a way his expectations and reality where they pass like ships in the night, don't they?
Well, and the other big problem is the shortage of fuel. So, you know, the single-engine fighter doesn't have great range. By the time it gets to somewhere like London from northern France, it's got around 10 minutes flying time.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's not very long, and then it's got to get back. And if it doesn't cut away and break out of the fray in time, they're going to be stuck and falling into the channel. So that puts an extra strain on the pilots as well. So it's, you know, it's turning into a perfect storm.
I mean, one of the things that's said about the Battle of France is that the Germans get inside the French and British decision loop, right? They're making decisions before the British have even figured out what's happened and the French have figured out what's happened, and then the Germans are making decisions that then act upon what's happened. Goering's outside his own decision loop in the Battle of Britain. He's not even reacting to the effects. He's reacting to what he imagines his effects are on the enemy, and he's wrong about those. So every decision he makes compounds his problems rather than compounds the enemy's problems, right?
Exactly that. Yeah. He's just making his situation worse. So, you know, I'll give you another example of this. By this day, the 19th of August, 40% of the airfields they've hit are not fighter command.
That's
okay. So, but if you're trying to destroy, the RAF's defensive force, i.e., fighter command, you need to be focusing on fighter airfields.
But let's not forget, they don't even know that fighter command exists.
Well, exactly. This is the point, that their start point for this battle is all wrong in the first place. So now they're running into issues. They're finding it's not so easy as they thought it was going to be. And now he's trying to find scapegoats. And the scapegoats is not his battle plan or his faulty intelligence or his strategy. He's thinking, it must be the fighter planes.
Yeah, they're not trying hard enough.
They're not trying hard. They're not being used in the right way. And so he tweaks around with it a bit more and says, okay, right, I now want you to do close escorting, which is just crazy.
Yeah. So we need to now talk about the people who are getting it right, the decision loops, the people at fighter command who are, in a way, in a strange way, not having to chop. They're altering as the battle comes, but they're not having to sort of reinvent the whole thing constantly like Goering
the task is a more simple one.
Yeah.
It's stop the Luftwaffe from destroying you.
So it's the defender's initiative rather than the attacker's initiative we need to look at next.
Yeah.
Great.
Lee Mallory, yes.
Yes.
No, thank you.
Lee Mallory.
No.
So if Dowding is the man who devised the system, the guy in the hot seat, the man operating the Dowding system, is Keith Park.
Yeah. Dowding is the creator of the orchestra. Park is leading it.
Yeah. He's the genius conductor.
Yeah, the genius conductor wielding his sword.
Yeah. And the thing is because he's running the battle on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
The man actually in the hot seat, basically the seat you are sitting in.
Yes.
We're at Northolt in the Ops room here. And
Yeah,
he
but
was
Uxbridge is only down the road.
It's only down the road. But the whole point is these are all completely interchangeable. He can run it from any ops room like this.
Yeah.
The Dowding system's the tool he's using, but he's the guy actually figuring out how to fight the battle.
Yeah, he absolutely is, and he spends an awful lot of time in the bunker at Uxbridge, in the ops room. But he also spends a fair amount of time going around the squadrons, talking to station commanders, talking to the wing commanders, talking to the men. He's got his own personal Hurricane. He's got a white flight suit. Everyone knew when he was turning up, and he'd zing around and go and see them. Like any good general, he'd go and talk to the troops as well.
Yeah.
So he's doing that, and he's listening to them.
Yeah.
So this is one of the big differences between him and Goering. Goering berates and lectures and tells them. Park listens and says, "Okay, well, how's it going? What do you think?" Then makes his own decision, of course.
Yes. So when orders come through, they at least feel that they've been considered in the building and there's a sort of consent. Yes. In the way that fighter command operates.
One of the accusations by Lee Mallory and Sholto Douglas at the end of the battle is that, which comes as a result of the whole big wing fandango, which we'll get onto later, is that Park is not tactically flexible, and that's just absolute nonsense, because he's marshalling his squadrons really, really carefully. So in July, when the Luftwaffe are sending over fighters and bombers over the channel, it's the time of Kanalkampf. He doesn't want too many sailing out over the sea. So he's sending off half squadrons, a flight of 6.
Yeah.
Then as it gets into the main assault from the middle of August onwards, then it's squadrons at a time. By the time we get to September, he's sending out pairs of squadrons. So he's sending out squadrons at a time because it's harder to anticipate what the Germans are trying to do and which targets they're going for, because they're sending smaller raids. But as they change and shift and focus on London, so it's easier to anticipate what they're going to do. So he can correspondingly change to that.
Why is he so good at this, though? Why is Park so well attuned to this battle? Why is he able to?
I think he's just very, very smart. He's a New Zealander. He spent a lot of time in England, and actually operating overseas as well. But he becomes 11 Group Commander only in April 1940.
Right.
But he's absolutely wedded to what Dowding's system is. I think he was working for Dowding beforehand, so he knows him very well. They have a very good working relationship. They're just attuned.
Yeah.
And he gets the system and understands his capabilities. And it's absolutely clear that he's very excited about the possibilities of what the system will allow him to do.
Right.
He knows he needs to marshal his men carefully, and he needs to get the best out of the asset he's got. So he's thinking really hard about this.
And the thing that concerns him most is pilots, isn't it?
It's pilots, shortage of pilots.
And the thing that's really interesting, though, is that he understands he needs to sort of, as the battle progresses, he then reorganises, doesn't he? And divides the squadrons into categories.
Well, this is such a seminal moment in the Battle of Britain. It really, really shouldn't be underestimated how important this is. So this is the morning of Saturday the 7th of September 1940, which later becomes known as Black Saturday because it's the start of the Blitz, which then goes on, the attacking of British cities, particularly London, until May 1941.
Yeah.
And that's the first day. And On that morning, there's a meeting between him and Sholto Douglas and Dowding and also Lee Mallory, and discussing what are they going to do about the pilot shortage. And the problem is that they're operating a lot of his frontline squadrons in 11 Group are operating at 75% strength. Incidentally, what that means is 16 to 18 pilots, not 20 to 24. Yeah. But he's still worried that is putting too much of a strain. You're expecting too much of your men. None of that kind of care, by the way, on the Luftwaffe fighter pilots. Yeah. Absolutely nothing like it. So they're concerned about overstretching the capabilities of their pilots and making them go through too much. They don't want them to be flying more than a couple of times a day because it's very, very exhausting.
The other thing that they don't know, Fighter Command don't know, how long is this going to go on for?
No.
They've just no idea. Whereas what the Luftwaffe are doing, it's always like, this is going to be 3 days, this is going to be 4 days, so all hands to the pump, oh, it's not working, try again at the same intensity. Whereas Fighter Command are thinking, we don't know how long this is going on for, and we don't know actually the size of the Luftwaffe. We're not really in touch with, so we're in for the long haul here, and we've got to take care rather than throw mud at the wall.
Park has been thinking, oh my God, what are we going to do? And he's really worried that as is Dowding, that the strain on the frontline squadrons is going to become too great. And what they've done is they've started to cut corners on the operational training unit, which is the last bit of training that you do.
Hours on type.
And this is hours on type. When you've got, as a young pilot, you've got your wings, you've done all that stuff, but then you're going to an operational training unit to learn on either a Hurricane or a Spitfire. And instead of having 20 or 30 hours, they're cutting it down to kind of 15. And it's just not enough. And the problem is those wet behind the ears pilots are coming to the frontline squadrons. The squadron leaders can't use them because they're no good to them. Yeah. So that means that their experienced pilots are having to fly more than they would reasonably be expected. And so that's a bad thing. So Park's idea is to classify squadrons A, B, and C. And an A squadron is one that has completely experienced pilots. And that would be at Hawkinge or Biggin Hill or whatever. Right in the front line of the fighting in southeast England and around London, at the end of August, beginning of September 1940. Category B squadrons are 50-50. So 50% new guys straight out of OTUs, 50% experienced guys. And that would be, they might be closer to the action, but not right in the thick of it. So that might be in the southwest, somewhere like Exeter or somewhere like that, or Bristol. Yeah. And then you've got a classification C. And a C would have only 3 or 4 experienced pilots, and the rest would be greenhorns, straight out of the OTU.
So this, in a way, is like, you're milking some good people off to form cadres, but for new squadrons.
Exactly.
And to spread the skills in areas of lower risk, so that you can bring people up, but cycle them up to speed.
Yes, because up until this point, even on the 7th of September, Dowding has refused to reduce the number of fighter squadrons elsewhere in the UK. Yeah. So there are still fighter squadrons at Drem outside Edinburgh. There are still fighter squadrons at Acklington and Leconfield. Yeah. These places up in the north, which are really only intercepting the odd jitter raid coming from Norway, a lone Ju-88 or a couple or whatever. It's very, very special. The main action, the main events is all happening in the southeast of England. So what that means is you can afford to have a classification C squadron up in Northumberland, for example, up in the northeast. And what that means is the 4 experienced pilots can train the inexperienced pilots and build up their hours on type. So they might be coming with 15 hours from an OTU, but you can double that in a week. Yeah. And then after a certain amount of time, 3 to 4 weeks or something, suddenly they're ready for action, and you can swap them with someone down below. And you can exchange 32 Squadron for 92 Squadron, which has been in Pembrey in South Wales.
But so Keith Park is not only think of all the things he's got going on. He's got a battle on a day-to-day basis to run. He's got 11 Group to run within Fighter Command. He's going around checking up on these squadrons personally, getting eyes on to see what he's dealing with, and he's also having to deal with intriguing within fighter commanders, but as well as go all the way back round to fighting the daily battle on a daily basis. And and the Germans shifting what they're doing, changing their minds.
Yeah, I really think the British people have a huge debt to pay to Keith
Yeah.
Park. I mean, he is venerated now, and rightly so. But his tactical flexibility in the Battle of Britain, you know, we're talking about myths of the Battle of Britain. That is not a myth. That is absolutely factual. He was completely brilliant.
Yeah. Well, everyone should, when they walk past the statue, wipe his boot, I think, so he gets shiny boots.
Well, there's a
as result.
fantastic statue in Waterloo Place, right in the centre of central London, just down the road from Piccadilly, just off Pall Mall.
Yeah.
Go and visit it.
Go
It's a
by
fabulous
and
statue.
rub his boot, so we shine his boot every time we go past and give him shiny shoes.
Thank you, Air Chief Marshal.
Yeah.
Yes.
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 I mean, it's quite the story, isn't it?